Now, our first story, government has extended the deadline for the domestic debt exchange program again to January 31, 2023 after backlash from stakeholders. This is the third time the Ministry of Finance has extended the deadline. We have a tweet from the Office of the Finance Ministry. If we have it, we can show it. It reads that building consensus is key to a successful economic recovery for Ghana, pending further stakeholder engagement with institutional and individual investors recently invited to join the debt exchange program. Government is extending the expiration of the DDE to January 31, 2023. We want to bring in Dr. Benjamin Alma, who is Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, also Executive Director of Center for Economics, Finance and Inequality Studies. Good afternoon to you, sir. Your thoughts on this latest development? Surprised by this?
Good afternoon. Not really surprised, because if you are following the discussion and the announcement right from the presentation of the 2023 budget, the discussions that started from then, and the fact that organized labor and the pensions industry succeeded in getting an exemption, an approach that government adopted in going after individuals in terms of following individuals, investors, to make up for what appeared to have been the lost ground from the side of the pension sector. One expected that definitely extensive negotiations might go on, and the period to negotiate and to come to an agreement was too short for government to go by the current deadline. So it is not surprising that there has been an extension. Will there be another extension? One cannot tell. But then if you have observed reactions, it looks like we are in this for a very long time to come in terms of getting to a conclusion on the acceptance or the rejection of the DDE program from the government.
Well, what has to change? We've heard many stakeholders call for a review somewhat.
Absolutely. There must be a review because, strictly speaking, the government is the borrower and all other parties here are creditors. But you see, what is happening is that because you are dealing with a sovereign, it appears that the sovereign has much power by the creditor. In any business arrangement, if the borrower, and in this case, the government is trying to undertake a preemptive default strategy. In other words, the government of Ghana foresees that the books are not too good, but the government of Ghana doesn't want to come to a point where it will default. So ahead of time, the government of Ghana is trying to preempt that strategy by coming at this proposal. One would have expected that the borrower will have engaged, but of course, we are talking about a sovereign setting where the sovereign has much power. So it's rather the sovereign that is dictating the pace and then inviting the creditors to come on board and to accept it. Definitely in situations like this, you will expect that the creditors will push back, and no wonder the creditors are also pushing as much as they can to make sure that they don't suffer the haircut and the negative side of the debt exchange program that we are currently being told about.
Well, another interesting development has to do with the pushback from banks. We're actually going to discuss this before news came in about the extension. So a letter to the commercial banks from the Ghana Association of Banks was asking them not to sign on to the debt exchange until their demands are met. I want to read bits of that letter for you. It says, from the uncertainty surrounding the program, GAB, that's the Association of Banks, recommends that all banks must stay any further movement on exchange until our demands have been met. However, in the event that a bank may have to move forward to exchange, the MD or CEO must inform the CEO of GAB directly of the decision. That's a quote from the letter from the Ghana Association of Banks to commercial banks. Now, the banks were promised a financial stability fund. Appears this is not enough to convince them to sign on to the program.
Absolutely. You clearly have to understand why the banks are taking this position. You know, in all these debt exchange program, if you look at the pension fund, the insurance, the banks themselves, it's the banks that are the more or less the mother port that becomes the nerve center for the movement of all these funds. We should not forget that if you have looked at our data on intermediation, banks create on the average just about 45% of loans. If you look at the bank income structure, it is hovering around 48% from loans. So you need to ask yourself, the extra 52% of income, where is it coming from? It is coming from some of these investments that the bank also undertake. So if you're having an exchange program that is going to hard hit the banks in terms of their investment income, not the loan income, the banks have an interest. Two, you are also talking to the banks to be dealing or calling individuals to come and sign on this voluntary debt exchange program. What does it mean? Clearly, if individuals are hitting back at the banks, it has implications for deposits. And so the banks find themselves in a situation where they themselves as institutions are being affected. And then two, because they serve as a front, the primary dealers for these bonds, they also have to come in to deal with their client or customers on the other side. We should not forget the stability fund, I don't think it's only for the banks. It goes beyond the banks. It's open to the public through the financial institution. And so the banks have a major stake. And if their demands have not been met halfway, or the demands have not been met, it goes clearly to say that the banks will have to, for the time being, call for a move away by their members on this exchange program until they have a better understanding, a better appreciation of their points by the government. Then maybe they will come back and then advise their members, that is the banks, on what to do. But currently, the strategy of the banks is acceptable. They are in the forefront of all of this. And if this is not managed very well for the banks, it will affect them. As we speak now, one can comfortably say that confidence in the financial sector is an all-time low. And definitely this is going to trickle into deposit, which will also impact on banks and businesses. So we need to look at it and address the concerns of the banks urgently.
Right. I was going to make the point about confidence in the banking sector and other operations of financial institutions as well, because that has been a big concern for many in that industry. And so I'm wondering now, where do we go from here? Government has extended the deadline, is hoping to engage the stakeholders some more, I believe. What has to give?
Yeah, definitely. At this point in time, every participant within this particular space, the government, the pension fund, insurance, individuals, financial institutions, mutual funds, each participant is trying to protect his or her interest. Definitely, because if you do not protect your interest, you are going to be sacrificed in the larger interest of all. So it is indeed a difficult time for government. There has been an extension. Let's see how the engagement will go between now and 31st. And let's hope that there will be some rethinking into the approach to this debt exchange program. Definitely, it's going to be very, very difficult for any institution now, at this point in time, to easily allow the state to use its resources or its interest in this debt exchange program for the larger interests of the entire stakeholders within the debt exchange agreement. One expects that government will have to engage more. One expects that there must be more public education. And above all, there must be transparency in this whole process.
Okay.
Three things come to mind. We need to ask ourselves, even if this particular debt exchange program will be successful, that is, even if it will be successful, we need to ask ourselves, how much are we looking at? One. Two, how much is it costing us to go through this debt exchange program? Three, how much are we saving as a country? We can call it profit, but how much are we saving as a country from this proposed debt exchange program? And what do we intend to do as a country with the savings that will come from this?
All right, Dr. Benjamin Amoah, Executive Director of Cephis, froze there a bit, also Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. I appreciate your time with us this afternoon. So.